Dalith, welcome to Stories in AI. What a pleasure to have you here today.
Thanks. The pleasure is all mine.
Thank you for taking the time again. Why don't we get started and start us off with your personal story? Tell us about your journey from an engineer to a technologist to a businesswoman to an AI enthusiast to making, changes to the world, positive changes to the world. Tell us your story.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, it is a great pleasure to be here once. Normally you are with us on stage, so I really appreciate to share with you my story. And I think one of the most important thing that I like to say, if when people look at me, okay, what kind of career and how did you get there? It was actually quite a tough way. I wasn't really brilliant at school. And actually, my teacher didn't really believe in me. In contrary, I actually even had to repeat classes because of mathematics. So, well, at the end of the day, I studied mathematics. So it took quite a while. I think one of the most important things were, on one hand, that my parents always believed in me, always supported me in everything that I did, and that I still have, a great role model, and this is my grandma. And I think these two things really, really brought me to where I am today. And for me, how I came to technology was more by an accident. I mean, studying mathematics and information technology, I got into the subject of computational biology. I wrote my thesis in the Cancer Institute in Heidelberg. It was about working interdisciplinary together with people out from gene technology and physicians, mathematicians, and information technologists. And this is something that I always loved, to have different views, to work together, and to be able to deep dive into another subject. And this is where I really got more attracted to what technology can do, how it can support the human being, how important it is, especially in research all around healthcare. So that was one thing. Then I came back to Switzerland, and more like by accident, I started to work at one of the biggest banks in Switzerland, started as a software developer, where I pretty fast changed to a kind of a compiler function. What does that mean? I was kind of the person between business and IT. So coming from the IT world, working especially with the traders, and my boss always told me, can you just explain them what we're doing? Can you please tell them that just changing a box is like having a lot to do to change in the code, and it's not just straightforward. And this is how I really came oh, sorry. That was actually my daughter. So, what is also one of my passions. I mean, besides technology, I have my family. And as most of you guys know, I'm also passionate about high heels. So this is like technology and high heels. And once a day, I think I'm going to combine these two things, but never mind.
There you go. So, there you go. Technology and high heels, AI and high heels.
The smart high heel, that would be so cool. But we will get there, I'm sure. So
it's like when you...
Sorry?
Yeah, it's like when you walk, it'll just go up by a few inches, depending on who you are with on stage, and then it goes down when you're
here in Switzerland, then it rains or you have snow and you have to pass, and it could somehow prepare the
create a show. I love it.
I'm actually already thinking about these subjects for quite a while, and I'm sure once a day we will come up with a smart high heel. But anyway, so this is one of the most important things. What I saw is really how you can actually implement technology, how we can use technology for better, how it makes our life easier, and how then I got, as I mentioned, being this compiler function between business and IT, understand how to explain someone the value on one hand, how to explain someone how difficult it is to change something. With someone comes and just asks you for a user friendly interface, and can you just change this and change that and just do it quickly, and you go like, this is not that easy, you know. So this was really the basics, how I got in more and more. How I got then actually into cognitive technology was pretty much when I was introduced to the possibility of digital employee. And now if I'm just talking about digital employee, a lot of people say, okay, this means people are going to lose jobs. This is definitely one thing that will happen, always happen. It's part of the history and part of every single revolution. I mean, this is just the way it is. On the other hand, it also brings new possibilities, and it also can accelerate people, the same people, to do other things, better things, different things. And this is where we are challenged, every one of us. But what I realized there, deep diving more into the power of cognitive technology, and I always say I'd rather talk about cognitive technology than AI, because if we talk about artificial intelligence, if we talk about artificial joints, artificial organs, or even artificial plants, we always consider it to be as neutral as possible. It somehow should be a copy of the real world. And for me, if we talk about artificial intelligence, it's not about copying the human being. It's not about copying our brain. It's about supporting the human being, doing things better where we are weak, like performance, like quality, a lot of things where the technology can support us. So this is where I saw how, for example, in support in call centers, if we think a very trivial example, if a digital employee, kind of a chatbot or avatar, can support any kind of support in call centers on the first level support, then the people who are on the second level has more time. So for me, it's not about telling them you don't have to work anymore. In contrary, if it's really easy stuff, let's just do by a chatbot or by a system, by an algorithm. On the other hand, if someone really has a problem, then he wants to be treated by a human being who has the time. And there, I would even go and say, if we save money by having digital employees, we should actually invest the money that we save into the people
real
who
employees
are still remaining with us. And now let's take this as an example. I ordered something online and I got the wrong thing and I fed up and I'm calling the call center and I'm getting to the second support level where I have a human being. Normally, support and call center, they are always confronted with negative experience. Why someone calls there? Because he has a problem. And sometimes they're getting really naughty. So how about if this person can really say, okay, I understand, I will take care, I have the time, and even have some possibility to say, you know what, we're really sorry, I can give you a 10% voucher for your next blah, 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 or I send you a small present or whatever. This is where the human being are really getting in contact, the interpersonal relationship, how we care. What is the difference if you order something left or right? It is about how you are being cared, how you're being served. And this is just like one trivial example where I see it can be a huge chance. It's not about, taking their jobs, but there the management obviously and the owners need to have the openness to reinvest what they actually kind of gained or saved by introducing digital employees or technology. It's not all about money. It's also about relieving the human being and have the focus on what we are good in, what we like to do, and so on and so forth.
No, that is awesome. And Dalith, you and I always talk about this, right? AI should have been or should be augmented intelligence. So it's not so much about creating copies, as you said, as you very eloquently put. It's about augmenting the human creativity, the ingenuity to help us do more, right? And then more with less, that kind of stuff. And I think the nuance in the example that you raised is we often think of the use of artificial intelligence or artificial agents or intelligent agents or cognitive agents in doing things that are very not uniquely human, like empathy and being able to provide emotional support and stuff. But the example you used, you're actually really twisting that and say, you know what, you could actually do that by mimicking emotional intelligence in agents. So you're protecting the employees in the process and making sure that their morale is up. I think that's a beautiful example. It's not trivial. It's actually a very interesting.
By the way, there is another very nice example that I would like to share with you. I mean, about the cashiers at the grocery shop. I bet in the States it's pretty much the same like in Switzerland. You have this possibility of automation or automated, how do you say, like, you know, when you pay, you go into the shop, you scan the stuff. At the end, you go to this machine, you scan, you pay, and you don't have any interaction actually with the employees there. And I think it's about 3 years ago or so, near where I'm living, they opened up one of these shops, and they did a trial version. And what I realized there, and I think this is a clever thing, we came in and suddenly there were more staff around in the shop because they had less at the cashier. They still have, obviously, you need this because it's not everyone's cup of tea to do that. But they had actually less staff at the cashier, how do you say, where you need to pay. And they put more people, more employees in the shop. And what happened, I came in and I took something. And then someone came and asked me, can I help you? Is there anything that you need? And I was quite surprised. Normally I'm getting asked as if I'm going into a shoe store or you know, but not in the grocery shop. And I was just looking, he was like smiling at me. It was really, you know, he wasn't in stress, just like, can I help you? And I said, oh, actually, I'm looking for this and this. And he said, okay, are you going to cook that and that? Now, I looked at him and was like, yeah. I said, do you know, by the way, we just have something new in this line. Would you like to try the sauce? I'll show you where it is. And then he came with me, he gave me the stuff. And then he said, by the way, did you thought about this and this ingredients? Because I know you will use this. And I was like, oh, right, I forgot about that. And he goes, don't worry, I'll show you where it is. And he actually literally just went with me. He knew what I'm cooking because out of the conversation, he found out very, very fast. He had told me what I might forget, and I actually would have. He told me what they have new in their offer, and I bought it. He had a smile. I had a smile. At the end I didn't have a cashier that normally, I mean, being frank, normally we're all with our mics on or we're on the phone. We're going to the cashier. We put the stuff there. They actually do the things. Oh, okay, $25. Okay, yeah, you pay. You even don't say hi. You don't say bye. You don't say thanks. You don't say anything. You're probably on the phone with someone, and you will only talk to them when something is not okay. And then you go, what is this? You know, and then they don't have the positive attitude of our human being. That interpersonal interaction is just actually reduced in a negative one. So obviously it costs the grocery shop more to put these people, or actually not more, the same kind of, to put them into the store. And honestly, I love to go there shopping because I know they're checking out. They know me in the meantime, and they even say, you know, now we have a new wine or something is in sale. You should check it out. Whatever, you know. You really start even to build a relationship with the employees because suddenly you look into their eyes, you communicate with them in a positive way, and not at the cashier where no one is looking at them because we're all on the phone, we're all busy, and we just want to go out, pay and go out.
No, that's a beautiful example. In fact, a classic example of how do you put technology to automate the mundane processes and elevate the part that you can make the human a lot more effective, build that connection. Actually, you know, if you remember, after our last event, the SwissCognitive virtual event, I wrote a blog on a framework for how do you think about automating a process versus not. And one of the things was exactly that. Is it something, do you have an interaction that requires people to have a very human, empathetic connection, right? And a cashier checkout is not a process like that, but actual shopping, guiding through the process is a big opportunity to do that. It's beautiful. I think, no, Dalith, this is amazing that both the examples you're talking about. So let me ask you, this is a show about artificial intelligence, AI, and how companies, organizations, governments, everybody, individuals are using and adopting this technology. Where is AI today in the market? What do you see in the market across the spectrum? Open question. Give us your viewpoint on what you're seeing in the market.
I would very much like to start with what I don't see. And one of the things that at the end makes the fear around the society, we don't see any superintelligence. Simply no superintelligence, even not in the labs. We're not talking about Terminators. We're not talking about sci-fi. We're talking about mostly single-purpose applications.
Narrow applications, yes.
And this is one thing that I really want to emphasize, because what makes us scared, obviously also myself, by the way, is when we talk about superintelligence. But this is so far away. And I don't want to say that we don't need to be aware of, and we need to discuss ethical aspects, policy stuff, and so on. This is for sure. But we shouldn't be hindered by these thoughts, because the human being is actually born to solve problems he invented by himself, or she invented by himself. This is just our nature. And by getting more mature and working on all these kind of possibilities with the technology, we will also guide ourselves towards what we want and what we don't want. And we need to be open, because if we're not going to be open, we will lose chances. And cognitive technology is here to stay. Cognitive technology is actually a basic infrastructure. It's like energy. I'm not asking myself whether I should use energy or not. I'd rather ask myself, what kind of energy should I use? What sources of energy I want to use? These are the questions that we're asking ourselves, and not in principle, do I use energy? Obviously, otherwise I wouldn't be able to talk to you. So this is also for AI, and where we see AI really raising, or like cognitive technology, and at the end, and this is also a very important point that we always emphasize on, and you're saying that too, it's cross-industry, cross-commodity, cross-technology. AI is just a technology. It's not magic. I mean, we used to do our bookkeeping stuff on a paper with squares. At least this is the way I've learned it. I mean, I just got 50 this year. So this is how I've learned it at school. Then we've learned to do it in Excel. But today, normally people are not doing the bookkeeping in Excel. We do have like super sophisticated cloud-based intelligence systems. They're helping us. No one is thinking of, okay, I'm still doing it on a piece of paper. And this is exactly AI. Now just AI comes in, it helps us. And we need to understand how AI empowers ourselves. So where we see it very strong, obviously, is in health. I mean, honestly, one of the really nice examples is, especially now in this very exceptional, difficult times of COVID, we wouldn't have been able to develop the vaccines as fast as we have been able to do it without this. Now,
absolutely,
this is just an advantage. And we benefit from the technology because technology just makes the development faster. Now, of course, sometimes we don't understand why the development goes left or right. You know what? Sometimes I don't understand my nearest why they asking or talking left or right. I mean, it's probably a little stupid example, but still, at the end of the day, we don't understand always everything. But with this technology, we definitely still talking about super sophisticated statistics. It's a weighted algorithm that gains more and more data. And with gaining more data, the algorithm learns more and sees angles that the human being might not be able to see. We saw that in different use cases. very interesting, especially in AlphaGo. So we should take that as an advantage and not say, but I don't understand, why did he do this part? I would have never done it. Why did he actually came to this conclusion? So one thing that we, in my opinion, we really need to be aware of, yes, we need to try to understand. We need especially to define the ethical aspects where we implement things. We have to re-ask or challenge the results. But on the other hand, we also need to have the openness to rely, to go forward with what we're gaining out of the advantage of this technology. And let me give another example. The old days, and sometimes still till today, if you had, if the doctor told you that you have kind of a disease and you need to have a surgery, quite a big one, we were always told, get a second opinion, get even a third opinion. Hey, AI is giving you not only a second and a third opinion, AI gives you 1 million of opinions. It actually goes out, getting all the information it has access to. And based on all this information, it can tell you, you know what, this might be an early stage breast cancer. Because looking at your picture, looking at your blood, looking at whatever it needs, it might be. And then it's still the doctor's responsibility to check myself as a person from my psychological, like how I am. It's still the human being, the doctor at the end, that together with the patient is taking today my English is not that good, is taking the decision how to go on. So I rather rely on the results of an algorithm, although I may not understand why it came to this conclusion. I still would rather rely on that than rely on two additional doctors who only has two eyes, who may be tired when they're looking at my X-ray and all these kind of things. And I think there's always an up and a downside, but we need to see the chances, and based on that, on this openness to this technology, we will have, I think, a natural way of guiding us towards the right way. For me, it's the same like the human rights or children's rights. This is just basic. We need to take care of that. We need to be aware of that. But we can't stop the development of technology, especially as health. And you were asking where I see especially the benefit of AI in which industry. It's definitely health. It's definitely pharma. But it's also all around cross-industry where you have repetitive tasks, where you can do predictive maintenance. And when we talk about predictive maintenance, we have, again, two different levels. One is actually you have a lot of use cases where the human being brings himself into danger if he needs to do maintenance. So if we have predictive maintenance, sometimes you actually don't need to send the human being to a danger place. So we're actually helping the human beings, health. And the other thing is that we can also reduce effort. We can reduce falls that can also occur to really big issues. We can save money. And there is a lot about just for having like predictive maintenance possibilities based on AI. We have already a lot of great possibilities to make sure that the human being is not in danger, make sure that we save money, make sure that we are more sustainable also. Absolutely. If you have a lack or a leak, how do you say that somewhere a gas line is going out? This is, if you can detect that, predictive maintenance, we can detect that up front. These are all kind of use cases where we can have it. So yeah, we see there a lot going on. I don't want to point out the industries that are not. We have some industries that are really sleepy, and once they're just going to wake up on the wrong tectonic plate and say, "Oh, wow."
What happened to me? What happened to me?
And normally they always are getting disrupted by other industries. It's not about the own industry. And the point is that still, and as I mentioned, I am already 50, so I can say that. Most of the people above 50, somehow they think, oh, okay, you know what, I'm going to be retired in a few years. Why should I invest? Why should I actually take a challenge? They don't see that every decision we're taking it for the future generation. And it's not about us. It's really about the younger generations and the generation to come. And this is a real chance where we need to get up, to stand up and say, let's see where the advantages are of this technology and support it.
It's so well put. It's actually the rate of adoption. We don't ask whether when we press the accelerator in the car, is the car going to move forward anymore? We just do it and we know it happens, right? That kind of comfort and familiarity will come to cognitive technologies when we use it. But a few things that...
By the way, did you ever thought about why do we have a secure belt in the car? I mean, this is exactly what I said before. The human being is born to solve problems he invented by himself. I mean, when the car has been invented at the beginning, a human being, was waving a red flag. Be careful, the car is coming. And then when we all know the story about the invention of cars and that horses will never get away from the streets and so on and so forth. And then we're just looking at it. So the car got faster, the car got better, more people wanted to have a car. We had more traffic. The people said, hey, it needs to be faster because suddenly I see I can get much faster from A to B. And I actually can go and visit my cousin that lives, I don't know how far away, that before it just wasn't possible. So there was a lot of benefit for the human being. And so more car accidents happen. So we invented the secure belt. In the meantime, we have the EPS, the ABS, the part control distance sensors, you name it.
I love that framework, Dalith. We humans are wired to invent and solve the problems they create themselves. That's amazing. Just to summarize on the state of the industry, what you see, right? One, most AI work happening, and I agree with you, is very much narrow intelligence. Super intelligence is still absent. Number two, I think the powerful approach, and you see the more successful implementations, is when it's augmenting the human in the loop, be it making their life better, like the predictive maintenance example, making it safer for employees to work, and so forth. And I think the one other thing that stood out for me when you were talking about is and I'll come to the seat belt very quickly, but is the doctor's decisions, right? So end of the day, it's a human decision, and the augmented intelligence systems or cognitive agents gives you feedback and input that you're going to still be making the decision as a human. What that calls for is, and then the other part that you talked about is trust. Like, how do you, give in and trust the system to engage and embrace it more? But before that, let's stop on that, that spot on the human making the decision versus the cognitive agents making the decisions. It kind of calls out the accountability of this situation, right? Wherein just because you have a very cognitive agent, classic example, Facebook and Cambridge Analytica. Yes, it's an intelligent cybernetic network with a lot of prompting and artificial intelligence that is letting people be guided one way or the other, get divided, and so forth. But Facebook and their executive team, the people behind the company, cannot absolve their responsibility for making it happen, right? And it's similar to that, right? So the flip side of this is like, when are you able to trust as a user, as a recipient of an AI or a cognitive powered service? When are you ready to actually go trust them? So explore the trust factor for me a little bit. How can you trust an AI? And what do you look for when you want to trust an AI?
very nice question. And I would like to start with a small anecdote that actually happened to me just yesterday. And I realized how I intuitively reacted, and I was perplexed by myself, saying like, how can a person like me, loving technology, living for AI, have such a feeling, and feeling are just not fakeable. So I had a certain amount of money to bring to the bank, and they were all, how do you say, this paper, how you say that in English, you know, the paper money?
Checks.
Sorry?
Checks.
Yeah.
Checks.
No, it's actually, it's money. It's like not the coins, it's the...
Oh, it's the notes.
Oh, it's also notes. Okay, good. In German, it's also notes. So I had a certain amount of these notes. They were all the same, and it was quite a big amount of money. And I wanted to go to the bank to pay, to bring in there in person and give it to a person. Okay. I was a little bit too early, and the bank was closed. I thought, okay, I don't have time to wait. Doesn't matter. I'll go to the bankomat, the ATM. And because, I mean, you can do this there. I logged in, and it says, please put in the money. And literally in this second, I felt like, do I trust him? I mean, what happened when he counts less than I have? I can't communicate with him. What will happen? I mean, will he bring it back to me and then I count again? And I literally felt a little bit stressed.
So
and
true.
I'm feeling really bad to say that, because at the end of the day, I love technology. But I must admit that I suddenly thought of, hey, you know what? That's true. Because if you go to the bank and the bank person counts and you look at him, there is a trust level. There is, you know, you look at someone, although if he would be a magician, could, you know, take something away. And so, I mean, there are all different kind of possibilities. At the end of the day, I trust a human being, and standing in front of the person, he or she counts. We can count together. If we're not sure, we just recount. And this is very interesting what happened then. So I put it in, obviously, because I believe in technology. And I was waiting, and this is just like really a few seconds. I was waiting for this number appearing and being the same that I expected it. And it was, obviously it was, because a machine is just counting faster and better and more accurate. But this just showed me, and I think this is very important for people like you and me and others who are even much more into that, and especially in research and developing or even talking about the superintelligence that is not even existing in labs. It's very human to feel like that. And it's very human sometimes to think of, oh, can I trust that? And this is why I brought this example with healthcare, with breast cancer. I think we really need to focus on those use cases where we see a huge advantage for the human being, really to support us, to augment us, as you mentioned. And still, with that, increasing our trust also into fields where we still feel a little bit uncomfortable, even myself. And I think this is how we can really gain trust into technology. And this is now more from a human perspective. I mean, when you think about what does the word trust in business means, if I'm ordering something online, normally I'm paying before I get the things. So I trust the system. I trust the system, not the technological system. I trust the economical system. I trust the moral of my counterpart that I will get the things that I've paid up front. Or vice versa, you getting an invoice means someone's sending you something without getting the money, because he trusts you that you will pay once you received. So this is just like how economy works, how the level of trust works. Now, when we're talking about, okay, how do we trust an AI? Meaning, how do I trust the result of an algorithm? So there, we're coming to one point, is the ethics and the bias. I would like to start with the bias, because a lot of people are saying the algorithm is biased, the results are biased. And this is very misleading. I think we need to be very, very precise with how we explain that. It's not an algorithm which is biased. It's the data that we produce. The human being is biased by definition. Why? Because we have different culture. My opinion can be biased in your eyes and vice versa. But my, let's say, culture background, like being Swiss, my probably doesn't see it as biased because this is how we raised, this is how we grew up, this is how we have been educated. And if we think about all the different culture that we have, and we take China and the States, for example, or remaining in Switzerland, having the French part, the German part, and the Italian part. I mean, this is just different how we look at things. It's natural. So what is really important first to understand, okay, when we talk about trust and ethics, we need to think about, okay, what is kind of the standard? Do we have a standard? And here I would like to bridge again. For me, a standard in AI would be equal to the discussion of human rights and children's rights. And we all know that globally it's not the same in all the countries, still not, unfortunately. But it's a responsibility for me to be, or to aim to have something like this. And this is obviously the UN and the governments, and at the end, the people that we're making sure that we're getting there. So again, trust, what does it mean? Now, we need to have the possibility to challenge, and this is an iterative process. When we develop an AI algorithm, it's about having the chance to unbias the bias. Means if we have exams in the university, and I have only 2 exams, one is very good and the other one very bad, obviously the average not going to be what I'm probably be able to provide. If I have 10 exams, then it's going to get more and more accurate to what my capabilities are. And this is all the same also. An algorithm needs to learn. The more data we're bringing in, the more more precise based on this data the results will be. Whether it's accurate or not is then the question of what we're putting in. Excuse my French, it in for it out. We all know that. So we need to think about ourselves. Where is the data coming from? How accurate is the data? Now we're coming to the next step. Okay, do we share data? Most of the people say, I don't want to share data because it's going to be misused. Why? If I'm not sharing data, how can an algorithm be able to learn based on accurate data? And here, obviously, I'm saying that I'm sharing accurate data. Oh, there is always people not sharing accurate data. By the way, if a human being wouldn't be cruel, we wouldn't need policemen, or women. We wouldn't need cybersecurity. At the end of the day, the only bad thing we have is a human being. So this is where we need to learn. So this is one thing that is really important. The other thing is definitely we need to make sure, in a very simple words, we need to make sure that human being is always capable to press the red button if an algorithm is trying to take over.
Kill switches. Yeah.
That's it.
Yep.
It's our responsibility. And if people say, yeah, an algorithm can be more intelligent and can start to overcome the human being and so on and so forth, I'm not going to say whether it's true or not true, whether we will get there or not. What I would like to say, it's a long, long way until we might get there. So we're learning how to handle it. We're learning by iterative processes how to make it better, that it will never happen, and to put boundaries.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, it's a very good point. I think, one of the things that I've been thinking about this a lot, right? Because we tend to take the discussion on trust in systems and AI or cognitive systems and agents to a very technical discussion. I mean, that's what the industry does today, right? So if we talk about trust or ethical AI, everybody lists out the same things like bias, compliance, accountability, privacy, all that kind of stuff. But I think there is something a little bit more deeper here, in my view, right? And I think the framework I think of when I think of trust is, One is, do you respect individual choice, which is something that you mentioned, right? I don't want to share my data. Don't ask me why. Don't force me to do it. I can trade off the experience I'm getting with the fact that I'm going to decide I'm not going to share my data. Don't give me the experience, but that's my choice. So respecting individual choice. I know it's a very Western world concept compared to how China is treating that same challenge right now. The second is transparency of incentives. I think the whole problem with Facebook Analytica and Facebook or Twitter, deplatforming people or any of that is less to do with intent and more to do with the incentives they're actually trying to optimize for, right? If you're optimizing for ad revenue, obviously I'm going to actually do what AI does very well, which is divide people, create different clusters, and optimize the recommendations for that individual groups than trying to get to a middle path. It doesn't drive ads, right? And then three is the technical aspect of things, right? Which is the data, the explainability, being able to interrogate the system when you're in doubt, right? That kind of gets back to the choice thing, but you're getting a recommendation. Tell me, why am I getting this recommendation, right? And that's where, as a user or a group of users or an organization, you can identify the loopholes, and you can say, you know what, that seems more biased. Like I'm brown skinned and you're recognizing me as something else that I'm not. There's a problem here, right? So being able to interrogate. And then lastly, ethics. I think that's a big global, big word. And the biggest question I always wonder about, like, whose ethics, right? So Saudi Arabia has got a whole different set of ethics for women's rights than China or the US, right? Or Switzerland. So aligning on, but like you said, like respect for in life. So human rights, respect for women's rights. I mean, respect for, living and non-living things, the environment and things like that. There is a common code of ethics that I think most people in the world can adhere to. Even the most benevolent dictators of the world, they all kind of agree that, these are the things that are important and critical. So I think this is an interesting thing, but I think the whole notion, one of the biggest aspects in AI development that's been fascinating me is experience design or interface design, right? How do you build that interactive design into these AI systems so you can approach all of these things in there, right? So fascinating. Thank you for actually exploring that and giving some examples around many of the stuff. And I have one last question for you, and then I got some quick rapid fire questions, right? So one is and you touched upon it briefly when you talked about bias, but diversity. What's the role of diversity in AI, right? I mean, I still feel, and my view is, here's why I'm asking this question. AI is still, very much concentrated. Most of the research and development and productionization is concentrated on a few well-resourced, well-funded organizations, the Googles, the Apples, the Netflix of the world, and the universities, right? And we all know, like the Timrit Gebru example and all these things where there is incentive misalignment for those things where it's not really, you can't really, I wouldn't say trust, but the research and all the development is focused on serving some other purpose, right? The average organization, people with smaller companies, mid-sized companies and stuff are left behind because they can't afford to hire the talent and stuff like that. So, but there is a need for diversity to make sure you're building the systems right way, using the system right way. What's the role of diversity? Give me your thoughts on it.
First of all, I would say the role of diversity is, if not the most important, at least one of the most important, definitely. And when we talk about diversity, it's really across everything. And as we just discussed also, the ethical aspect, we really need to challenge that from different culture, different attitudes, different way of thinking. And this is definitely something that is really, really important, because this is the chance how we can unbias a bias also, and also a chance how we can reflect of things that we haven't thought of before. So this is definitely, I would say, one of the most important things. And also is the base for respect, that we respect every single citizen on this globe. And
it's reflecting the human values that we want to adopt, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And by the way, also, and this is one of the things that for me, we're not talking enough about, it's also the diversity in age. And when I'm talking about diversity in age, I'm talking also about the really, really young people. We have to include them because, I mean, sometimes they know much more than we know. And by the way, we are actually passing their future. So we have to somehow listen to them. They also have a different view how they act and how they share their data. I mean, if I'm looking at my two daughters, it's totally different. So I think this is also a very important thing, and where I see people are saying, yeah, you know, we have a lot of experience and this is up to us, and they don't know what they're talking about because they don't have the experience or their kids. Yeah, so I think this is a very important thing. The other thing is the diversity where you mentioned about, you know, SMEs, for example, and how SMEs are probably not able to afford these talents to develop or to use. And actually, the use is something else, but to develop and implement these possibilities with cognitive technology. And this is one of a very important point to me too, what I discussed a lot with even corporates. Why the average always have the feeling that we need to develop this by ourselves? What's the big deal? I mean, I have my core competences. They have their core competences. There is a lot that we can just buy. I'd rather invest in another company, whether it's a startup, an SME, or corporate, who really knows what it's talking about, who knows what he's doing. I invest the money there so they can actually make their job better, scale the whole system. And I'm using it. I'm just buying the service, the product, or whatever. Why are banks, for example, thinking, oh, this is our USP, this is our data, we're not going to share this, we're going to take the talents into our own system, we're going to develop everything else. Now we're coming to two problems. One problem is, okay, banks have a lot of money to pay talents. I mean, especially in Switzerland. You know what? These talents are being taken away from the big ones because they just pay even more. So it actually raises the salaries of these people. It's nice for the people. But on the other hand, it just doesn't make sense. There is really a competition at the end for the talents, and we're seeking for talents everywhere. And especially we're seeking for talents in industry where I must say, hey, sorry, it's not needed that we are, how do you say, that we are taking the talents away into companies or industries that actually better invest in the companies and industries who are developing it. But, and there is the important point of diversity in a mutual, in a common way of working. Now, I mentioned at the beginning when you asked me, so like how I became, what was my way of career and so on, and I said that I pretty fast started to be kind of a compiler, explaining the two languages, you know, to transfer the messages between business and IT. And this is exactly what we need. The technology is the underlying, the technology is the enabler, the empowerer for brighter business. So what we need people understand the power of it, understand the possibilities that are being given by the technology, and let other people then develop and implement, invest in research, support universities. We have a system here in Switzerland that is really cool, and it calls the triple Ps, like private-public partnership, where really companies are investing into research projects together with the universities. This is very important. So obviously, after a certain point, you're talking about the USP and you have an idea and you don't want to share it because you don't want to get into a competition with your with the others. But also there, I mean, it is an ecosystem, and the better we use this ecosystem, the more we can get out of it. And this is one of our DNA part, share for success. I rather want to have a little from a lot than a lot from nothing. I mean, what's the big deal? So
that's amazing.
Especially supporting startups who has great ideas, who are much more agile than a lot of corporates because they just jump in, they do it, they have the possibilities, they have other responsibilities. I rather see the diversity there of using the ecosystem and not, sorry, I don't know if that's the right word in English, sucking all the talents out of the system.
True. No, it's, I always am a big fan of, your motto, share for success. I mean, I think that's the beautiful thing about technology is technology has always enabled human beings to do more with less. I mean, that's the common theme across everywhere, right? So when you know that, when you actually, have seen history to actually do it, it's going to elevate the life and experience for everybody, right? So if you share for success and you share that success with everybody, it's only going to accelerate that journey. So I think it's very beautifully put.
And this is the most important thing. It makes you feel happy and it makes you smile. And this is it. If I can share a success with someone, it just gives you a good feeling. And this is what we human are born for, at least in my opinion.
No, I 100% agree. I like to say giving is a drug. It's like, it's very addictive. When you start giving, you get a lot more, but you actually start, you feel good. It's kicking off not just the dopamines, but the serotonins and some of the more highly valuable hormones. Dalith, this was fascinating. Thank you so much. How can the viewers and listeners get in touch with you? It's a standard question. Everybody knows you, but still, where can they find you on the internet?
LinkedIn, on our webpage. And what I really love to is invite whoever is interested to look at our webpage and see the different kind of events. And actually, not only ours, where everyone is welcome and everyone can register for free, but there are also a lot of other events, and this is a Share for Success. If anyone has an AI-related event, great information to share with the community, then also reach out. We will more than happy to accelerate others and share their information.
That's amazing. And it's so amazing the kind of work you and Andy and the team are doing from Switzerland. So it's making an impact to the world. So thank you so much for taking the time, Dalith. And this was a blast.
Thanks a lot and have a great end of the year. And stay safe and hope to meet you finally next year, perhaps in person.
Let's do it. I can't wait to do that.
Okay, thanks.